Good afternoon, everyone. By a show of hands, how many of you have saw me speaking before? Oh, I thought I was famous. Apparently, I'm not. Okay, but anyway, I work for this organization called Reapfield. We are a 34 years old real estate agency with 11 offices across Malaysia, 1 in northern region, 10 in central region, and we have an international office as well. Over 800 real estate negotiators. Now, I want to start my presentation by really showing you that I have done a lot of talks and all that. I have done radio, I have gone on papers. Okay, now I've got 2 important questions to ask you. How many questions? 2. Number 1, does the property market affect the economy? Okay, so I got another question, second question. Does the economy affect the property market? Okay, so by a show of hands, which one takes precedence? Number 1 or number 2? How many will say number 1? How many will say number 2? Chicken and egg. So who is the chicken, who is the egg? Now, it's important for us to understand where we are. The first speaker talked about timing. The first speaker talked about the reasons why you should invest. My goal in my today's presentation is just to give you an overview to help you to make decisions that are good decisions for yourself. There are 3 components that is very important to affect the economy of the country or the location or the investment location, okay? How many things? How many components? 3. Number 1, you must have federal government initiatives. Number 2, you must have state government in play. Number 3, you must have the private sector. Now, why is it important to have federal and state government? We need to understand the system in Malaysia. How is it being structured? Malaysia is a federation of states according to the Federal Constitution of Malaysia. Now, federal government dictates federal policies. State government dictates state policies. Make sense, huh? Now, the utilization of land, it falls under the purview of the state. Under the Federal Constitution, land matter is a state matter. So whatever the state government wants to do on their land, federal government have no say. Do you understand that? That's why there's difference between policy for land usage in Selangor and land usage in KL. So it is also very vital and important for both government to be talking to each other. If the state government and the federal government have to collaborate in order to garner better communication and better outcome of their planning. Does that make sense? So if KL want to do well, they must get support from Selangor as well. Does it make sense? Because the population of Greater Klang Valley or Greater Kuala Lumpur, it's about 8 million people right now, which encompass, 7 million, which encompass a big majority of the Selangor population. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Now, this is how Greater Kuala Lumpur look like. It's divided into 10 sub-territories or 10 Majlis Perbandaran. The federal government takes care of federal things. The state government then manages local authorities. Your Majlis Perbandaran, your Dewan Bandaraya, your MPPJ, MPSJ, and KL Central is located where? Anyone? KL, under DBKL. So it is important for you to understand in any place that you invest, is the location or that particular place that you're investing falls under the purview of all these local authorities planning or not. For example, I cannot quote certain places, but there are certain places, for example, they want to rebrand certain location. They call it something south, something north, something east, something west, right? You understand what I mean? Okay? You must be very cautious with those. I'm not saying they are not good. I'm saying that you need to go back and study the plan to see if that something north, south, east, west is within the purview of the local authority and the state and if possible the federal government. Because if it's not, who is going to build the roads? Who is going to build access? Who is going to build schools? Who is going to enhance traffic flow? Who is going to control? environment impact assessments to those locations. Does it make sense? So all these things are fundamental in whenever you put consideration into investing your properties, because the fundamental is who is running the government. This is a census, I think, in 2010 based on population, and the population shows that no pointer. Sorry. So I use my finger. I got pointer. Is it working? A little bit, one small dot there, huh? You see the population is building from here all the way out, right? North, south, east, west. So south side you have Puchong, Dengkil, Sepang. This is the south side, Subang Jaya a little bit. And then the west side you have your Shah Alam, PJ. Your east side you have the Kajang, and the north side you have your Rawang Selayang. Got pointer. Thank you very much. Oh, this one, big pointer. Okay. Okay, so these are important to see what is the planning for West. For example, I give you an example. Shah Alam Klang is probably the most well-built location in the whole of Klang Valley already. Why? Do you know why? What is the attraction in the western part of Klang Valley? What is in Klang? Bak Kut Teh. Okay. Yes. So everyone goes there and Saturday morning to eat Bak Kut Teh. But what is really in Klang? The what? The port. So in every time when you want to create hype or you want to create economic activities, high impact economic activities is necessary in order for you to generate population traction. Does it make sense? You want to buy an investment, right? Make sure got people want. I was quoted recently, 3-4 months ago, I was speaking in a 1,000 people property forum. And I tell them this thing, and I didn't know the newspaper captured this and put big, I cannot show you here, but big one I said this to the people. If there's no jam, don't buy. I repeat, if there's no traffic jam, don't buy. There is traffic jam because there is traffic, there is people, there's economic activities going on for investment. Own stay is very separate. You want to stay somewhere far away, it's okay. But for investment purposes, there must be human traffic, there must be high impact economic activities. Now, in order to drive all these things, you require federal government initiative because they are planning the shape of the future of the nation. Now, I don't have the blueprint or the new plans from this current government. I only show you what they planned to do last time in the previous government. Just to give you a perspective. Doesn't mean I support any government, okay? Just to be clear, I'm just being factual here, okay? Now, the previous establishment of the previous government had 12 key areas. We call this the Economic Transformation Plan under the Pemandu unit in the Jabatan Perdana Menteri, okay? And they wanted to, the goal was this, the goal was to propel Malaysia from a developing nation to a developed nation. Right now, we are still a developing nation. And one of the key indicators for a developed nation is for an increase in PPP per capita, or what we call income. There was a gentleman there asking about the income of Malaysians. Now, let me give you a perspective, and he was very accurately right. The perspective of a developed nation and a developing nation. In Singapore, the average income, if you take all Singaporeans, about 6 million people, average income is about 40,000 US dollars per year. Average. For Malaysian, almost 10,000 US dollar per year. There is a huge disparity of gap. Does it make sense? Hence why here is cheaper, there is more expensive. Right, there's the PPP price parity differences between two nations, right? The goal was, how can we increase Malaysians' high income to be a high income nation? There was the plan last time. And some of these key components has been set into place or set into play in order to generate that kind of high impact economic activity to determine or to bring Malaysia forward. And some of them are electronic healthcare. But the number one thing, what's the number one thing? Is to enhance Greater Kuala Lumpur Klang Valley. That was the number one plan on the chart. It was to increase population from 8 million or 7 million to 10 million by 2025. That was the plan. And they laid down a lot of background work in order to do this. So for example, one of the major plan was to bring Jack Ma to Malaysia. You know, after 1 month, Tun M, which is our 4th Prime Minister and the 7th Prime Minister, one of his kind historic moment, the first international business person he met was him. This is a very strategic move. Very strategic move. How many of you on the 9th of May stayed up until very late at night? No sleep some more. Very kanchiong oh. Want to see the swearing ceremony. My wife told me, why no swear yet? Why never swear yet? You know? And the minute after, I think 1 or 2 days later, when Tun M was sworn in, how many of you saw the first press conference? What did Tun M say? He said 2 very important things. Do you all remember or not? The first thing he said, Malaysia will observe the rule of law. Remember or not? That was the first thing he said. We will not be vengeful, but we will observe the rule of law. And number 2, he said this. He said, we are a trading market. We are a trading nation. Malaysia is a net export country. We export more than we sell. Meaning we have a trade surplus. We sell more than we buy, which is very, very good. And he said this, he said, Malaysia will require more markets. We want to penetrate more markets. Therefore, I'm going to form the Council of Jedi. Oh, sorry, elders of eminent people, okay? So what was that? You brought in key people to look at restoring certain initiatives with international markets, and it's very, very important. Who were the first ministers that he appointed? This is not political, this is factual. Number 1 is finance. Number 2, defense. Number 3, home minister. Home take care of security, defense take care of external defense, and the finance minister is very important. Why? There were 2 days of holiday so that the finance minister can do his work. Right? So this is very important. Let's see a snapshot of where Malaysia is. You need to understand this first before we look at investment in location, right? The growth rate between 2000 to 2017, we saw an annual compounded average rate of 4.76%. Now, how does that look like on the chart? The chart looks like this. So, meaning every quarter since 2014, we have been having growth. Negative growth is when it's below this line. Does it make sense? These are all positive growth. Slow growth, coming back into a better growth. In order for us to be declared as in recession or being in technical recession, we need about 2 quarters of negative growth for us to be classified as technical recession. The last time we have technical recession was in 2008-09, during the global financial crisis, when you saw Lehman Brothers collapse. Okay? So this is Malaysia. What is this? Show the patterns. I'm only showing you patterns. I'm not telling you what I think. I'm showing you the data. The pattern shows there is a potential trend of rebounding in terms of stronger growth. Okay, this is the trend up to 2017. Interestingly, you see trends 2015-16. Why we go down so low? Because what many issues we had. We had the bank account issue. We have the boat issue. We have many issues lah. So a lot of differences, a lot of changes here. Now we are coming back up to this trend. I haven't seen the 2018 numbers yet, but if you could see some of these trends, I believe is a little bit on a rebound factor for the GDP. Now the GDP means all businesses combined in Malaysia, combined together to have growth, right? In order for us to have growth, to be a developed nation, we need to have constant, strong growth. Very important. Developed nations like Singapore has smaller growth because they are already developed. In the US, it's a developed market, so it's already developed. So developing nation will always constantly have strong growth. Give you a different perspective. This is the total volume and value of transaction by our reporting agency called NAPIC. NAPIC, you can go back and Google NAPIC. NAPIC is the agencies that crunch numbers and gives a lot of property reports. It shows us, I have a number from 2011 to 2016, talking about the volume of transaction and the value of transaction. Okay? This is total volume transaction, total value transaction. The transaction from 2016 is about 146 billion ringgit of properties. When I started real estate in 2004, the nation's total value of transaction was something about 60 over billion ringgit only. Today, it has increased more than 100% through time. Okay, so it shows it is in tandem with the growth of a developing nation. There must be volume, there must be value. Of course, of late, you can see volume is decreasing. Lesser purchases is happening, but the value is still maintaining, okay? Now, this is the Malaysian House Price Index. Someone mentioned just now about in 2008, there was a growth. Actually, the peak was 2013. In 2013, I remember when I sold real estate, right? Anything you sell, sure sell one. You draw a picture on the paper, you tell the buyer this is the house, they will buy. It's true, everyone was buying that time. This was the peak of the market. The peak was about 14.3% on the house price index. So meaning, if you have bought something before 5 years or 6 years before this, you will see a growth of 14.3% in the year of 2012-13. That was the peak of the market. Okay, so slowly it's normalizing. Now what does this mean? This means that the growth peak is now normalizing. There is always still growth. In order for, if you have negative growth, means it's below the line again, okay? We are still growing. Now, I wanted to give you a perspective. It's interesting to see a Singaporean very excited about Malaysian. So I feel very pressured now because as a Malaysian, I should be more excited. So I want to show you a perspective of investments. If you are investing in properties, let's look at different regions of investment, for example. Okay, this is the Australian market. This is the Australian price index. Is zigzag, zigzag, zigzag. Okay, now Australia is what we call a single economic driven country, which is what? How many of you know Australia? Mining. Mining is the number one. It's all driven by mining. It is a very nationalistic kind of policy. You cannot have other banks except Australian banks, for example. So it's very protective. If you're a foreign investor buying in Australia, you can only sell your product, you sell your house after handover, you can only sell to another foreigner. Okay, sell to another local buyer. So there is a lot of restriction, but it is a zigzag thing. It depends on how the global economy is in terms of China's consumption or major countries' consumption of mining products. Then you have Singapore. Singapore is what I call a transparent country. Whatever you do, they will know. You eat chewing gum also, they know. Because you cannot eat chewing gum. I don't know whether they say someone say can eat now already, but I was told last time there was a law saying you cannot eat chewing gum one. Illegal to eat chewing gum. It's a very serious country. Very transparent. That is why in any major crisis, right, they will follow through with in tandem with what's happening. So for example, 97 is here, there were the peak, they dropped down during the Asian financial crisis, right? And then when you go into 2008, it was the global financial crisis, they also dropped, they follow. Okay? So Singapore is different. Singapore is very transparent. If you ask the minister, how is the market? Market is very challenging. If in Malaysia last time, how's the market? Market is very good. Right? So it's different. It's very transparent market. That is why it is a preferred global market, and that's the direction from the local government in Singapore to make it a global financial hub. This is the UK. UK market also is a global market. Everybody wants to buy something in UK. So if you don't believe me, you walk into any, this is confirmed, you walk into any 5-star hotel, you see the clock there, London, Paris, New York. So everybody wants to have an asset in London or UK, right? So it's an international, it's a very strong international market. A perspective of international market, for example, in Singapore, about 27% to 30% of the purchases of properties in Singapore are foreigners. In Malaysia, less than 5%, plus minus. Guess in Singapore, who's the number one foreigner in Singapore? Who? Malaysian people are the number one foreigners in Singapore. That's the truth lah. That's why during any global financial crisis, when the international market pull out, the price will come down. In Malaysia, during global financial crisis, we only saw certain pockets of correction in the KLCC area. In 2013, 2008, markets like Puchong, Old Klang Road didn't collapse in price, right? Because it was still very much a 100% local market. So local market is still the major play in Malaysia. However, I believe we are in a very interesting time to see influx of more FDI in the new coming policies due to our new establishment of a new government wanting to open the markets more. Now, this is Malaysia in the past 12 years. It's a very flat market. Reason is because it is grown by local private consumption, not international market. Very, very stable. Very, very stable. Generally speaking. Now, this is also a very important fact. This is the population of Malaysia. You can see about 31.7 million based on 2016 census, right? You have more male than female. So guys, not more than one wife. Not enough wife for the male. Okay? You can take 4. Wow. You can take 4. Some of us, most of us here can't. Some can. Okay, but this is the population. But the most exciting part of this is this. The median age means the median age of Malaysia is at the age of 28. Meaning about 69% of the population are around this range. And the growth of this, it's about probably 0.7 per year. So what we are called today, we are what we call a young population or a productive population. I give you a perspective right now. How many of you been to Japan? How many of you been to a taxi in Japan? Nobody take taxi in Japan before. But how many of you seen a taxi driver in Japan before? How does he look like? So I was once in a taxi in Osaka. I looked, because in the taxi they have this card there, the dashboard, the ID of the taxi, and then it shows his age was 75 years old. Oh, you're driving a taxi. The average median age of Japan right now is about 55. You are called what? An aging population. Okay? You have high population, but they are aging population. So an aging population has some limitation in productivity. Does it make sense? That's why in Japan today, if you put money in a fixed deposit, what's the interest? You have to pay them money to put money in the bank, you know. Minus. In Malaysia, you get 3%, 4%. How many millionaires here you will know lah? You got a few percent inside there. Why? Because the government wants the money, the Bank of Japan wants money to be floating in the market more because there isn't enough. Right? That is why yen is always under pressure because it is not a productive nation anymore due to its population. So if you buy a property in Japan today, you get what we call generational loans. Father buy, grandson, son will pay. It's a 60 years, 30 years, 90 years loan, right? That's the only way they can get financing to buy properties, right? So it's what we call an aging population. That is why I believe personally that this is the right timing due to the population that we have. Now, in order for us to understand if the population is at this age, what kind of characteristic of property would they like? Does it make sense? Because if majority of your tenants or your buyers, future buyers you need to know the trends. Does it make sense? In fact, the global trend shows that by 2025 or 2020, I can't recall, 50% of the entire global workforce will be Gen Ys. Now, what is Gen Y? Gen Y, there's two schools of thought. Some people say born 1981, or some people say born 1983. I believe it's 1981 because I was born 1981. So I believe I am the beginning of Gen Y. The Gen Y is the beginning of people understanding technology and play gassing. Okay? In my time, technology was 1515. You remember what was 1515? TM 1515, Okay. So if you know that the majority of the future and current population is in this age group, what would they want? I give you some examples. Number one, they want something like this. What is this? Very complicated one. Cannot explain. The picture is not high res. If you can see, must see KLCC. Whatever reason it is, if your property can see KLCC, for some reason it's better price one. Agree or not? Everybody wants to see the KLCC tower. Cannot get KLCC tower, KL tower also never mind. But this is what they like. Gen Y is very emotional, very feel one. I feel that it's a nice thing. I feel. And then you have to have trees on the, this particular development has some trees all over the balcony. So it feels good. I give you another example. This one have a beach on the top floor. Because of this beach, right, the property of this particular block went up by 400 ringgit per square feet. I used to live behind this building. I paid 300 over dollars per square feet. These people pay 1,000 over ringgit per square feet. Same location. One block behind only. Why? Because majority of the current consumer trend is like this. I feel good lah. Why? Because got beach lah. What's the beach? Just got sand only. Got some water, and I think they got some mechanism to blow the water in and out like a little bit of wave. But it's very small only. And they say it's the sky beach. Hey, but don't laugh, oh. Can sell one. Can sell. It's selling. And the tenants are renting. Because the global workforce are majority coming in Gen Y. Right? So if you are investing right now, my father see this, my father say, you crazy. You better buy a house in SS2. A double-story house, cheaper than this some more. But that value no longer may not longer be relevant in today's market and the future market. Does it make sense? Right? It may not be relevant. I'm not saying it is, but it may not be relevant. Now, the consumer behavior for Gen Y is things like this lah. Very cool, very fun, very connected one lah. Gen Ys like all these things. I believe in 1997, when the federal government was planning for all these location, for example, KL Central, they were thinking about this in the future already, thinking about what will the generation like. And a lot of this, it is not something the government wake up and feel that this is the way to do. It's because they mirror after global cities. If you go to New York, if you go to maybe Hong Kong, if you go to Shanghai, if you go to Singapore, it's all mirror after successful mega cities. Does it make sense? It is not that one day they wake up and suddenly, I believe you must build 8 LRT lines or 8 train lines in this city. No. It's because it is following some formulation from other successful developed nations, because we are trying to be developed, going towards developing, okay? Now, what they like about one of the key things that Gen Y like is TOD projects. TOD is not the brand TOD. TOD is transit-oriented development. Meaning you work, live, play. Actually, in substance, you work, live, play inside here. You don't need to go anywhere else. You can sustain here. All these things are sustainable already. And one of the key things is this. The key factor to enable a transit-oriented development to work, there's one major key. How many keys? One major key is economic activities. If you've got no economic activities here, okay, there's no population. If there's no population, there's no consumption. There's no consumption, there's nobody, right? So just because it's next to LRT doesn't mean it's really a full-fledged transit-oriented development, just so that we are aware. It must be integrated with some sustainability. KL Central, some of the facts. This is the line. You all know the line, all the line. And if you see just now, it's pretty much well built. What do you see here? A lot of hotels, office building, right? Over 95% of lettable space here, property space here are commercial building. Only 5% are residential. Only 5% are residential. These are all the major roads. You all should know the LRT better than me, okay? Probably you'll see we are at the tail end of finishing this whole place. Now, by the way, for those who grew up in Kuala Lumpur, do you know what is this place last time called? What is this land part of what place? Brickfields. So what we did, what it was called Brickfields, because it is a process of what we call gentrification, making the old location into a new location, right? And this requires federal government support. in order to build and approve all this planning, there must be a reason behind this, right? Gentrification. For example, Section 13 in PJ, gentrification process from industrial to be more mixed commercial residential location in PJ, right? But this is KL, right? These are the current buildings that we have. These are the companies, global companies in the world are here in KL Central. This is the global companies. Now, of course, we talk global companies. We also must talk local companies as well. These are some of the GLCs and the top 10 companies or 50 companies in Malaysia. Okay, there are some of them here. This is an example of a global company, Shell. 15 years of lease, they are leasing the building. Google have 10,000 square feet when they first started in 2003. 13 in KL Central. Now they've expanded their operations to 150,000 lettable space already. Why? Very important. Why? Because Malaysia is poised to be the hub for e-commerce. Okay, Digital Free Trade Zone is a very serious initiative to link Malaysia as a hub for the Southeast Asia region as an e-commerce trading hub. Now, very important, when Jack Ma, I think a few years ago, was looking for a place to be the hub for Southeast Asia, he was considering between Indonesia and Malaysia. He chose Malaysia. Do you know why he chose Malaysia? Only the brave ask the right question. Why did he choose Malaysia? This is my opinion. My opinion. I think because I think Malaysia a little bit smarter. Let me explain to you why. Because systemically, we are much more mature. We also have free education. In Indonesia, education is not free. The average Malaysian here can speak multi-language. We can speak English, Malay, Chinese. Some can speak Korean due to K-drama also. We are multi-language one, right? So this makes a lot of difference. A lot of us poised to go into tertiary education, right? In the major cities or major urbanized location. So that is why I believe Malaysia is positioned to be in a very, very, very strategic time right now. These are some of the buildings. There are only few buildings right now in KL Central. Okay? Roughly the vicinity of this location within KL Central and a little bit outside of KL Central have 3,346 units. There are 70,000 working population here. 200,000 traveling in KL Central every single day, going past this transit hub. Okay, this is the numbers. I'm not telling you my own feelings, but I'm giving you facts. Okay. Some of the numbers shows that Brickfields, now because KL Central in the Google map is part of Brickfields, doesn't mean Brickfields, but I believe the Brickfields here is referring to KL Central. We are ranked number 3 in the best Airbnb return globally. Yes, means KL Central not Brickfield, but KL Central because that's the location. So we are ranked number 3 with 1,200 growth annually. This is what some of the data have shown in Airbnb. We are ranked number 3 globally. Okay. There are a lot of good returns. This is the average returns in the older buildings. Okay, in KL Central. JLL report shows that across board for 4 major expatriation locations, KL Central has positive growth every year based on rental return. And the only, and I'm not saying that Mont Kiara is not good. I used to live in Mont Kiara. Doesn't mean Mont Kiara is not good. KLCC doesn't mean it's not good. Doesn't mean Bangsar is not good. It only shows why there is growth in rental because of supply. Not enough supply. Not enough of supply. The demand is very, very high. Okay? It also shows the average price growth. KL Central has the highest price growth in terms of percentage points. This is research done by Savills. And the only reason pointing this is not because KL Central is more prettier than Mont Kiara. It's not that's not what it says. It only shows, I believe personally in data and fundamentals. Numbers must make sense. the numbers tell me that there is lack of supply in this area, therefore demand is high. Make sense? The law of supply and demand. Whenever there is low supply, high demand, price goes up, okay? And the other fact that is this, it's very hard to compete with KL Central. It's very hard to compete with the whole government of Malaysia's initiative. This is a transit-oriented development. If you look at anything around here, they are all individual titles already. They are all individual owners. For the government to acquire all these things, to extend this, is very expensive. It's very, very expensive. The rental in Brickfields for a normal shop is not cheap. It's very, very expensive, right? And nobody wants to sell. And if you go to Brickfields, oh, the shop full one. Agree or not? Why? Because the population is here. There is a lot of population. This is basically some of the returns in some of the specific products that you may see here today. If you sit down and talk to the salespeople later, they will give you some inside information. But this is some of the gross yields that is very conservative. That is probably what you will see here. Now, my final point is this: when you want to invest in a location, right? Always look at the fundamentals. And transit-oriented development is important because it is in line together with the population today. The population today needs it. It is a need. It is not a want. And the Malaysian population, it is poised to have strong growth due to its productivity and its age. The population age group in Malaysia is very, very healthy right now. This is the timing right now to really put our money to work in Malaysia. Now, then, to think about this, what do you think the future of the price will be? Something that you need to ask and talk about yourself and ponder upon yourself. Okay? I'm pretty much done with my presentation today. Thank you very much.